Welcome back to the Talking with My Hans channel, everybody. This is my review of Chapter 15 of The Mandalorian, The Believer.
Who's scruffy looking?
I don't know how they do it every single week, but it just seems like this show keeps getting better and better and better every week. You think you've seen the best episode of the season 2, and then all of a sudden the next week comes around and the next episode is even better. This episode absolutely lived up to that. This is by far the Bill Burr episode. Last week was the Boba Fett episode. This is the Mayfeld episode. Bill Burr was absolutely fantastic in this episode. I don't know whose idea it was to cast him. Apparently, it was John's, according to one of my Twitter followers. But if it was John, kudos to him, because Bill Burr went from absolutely hating Star Wars to being one of my favorite and probably one of the best characters in this show. He did an absolutely awesome job portraying Mayfeld in this episode. He brought a lot of depth to the character, a lot of depth that the character I didn't even know even had. So kudos to him for being one of the best parts of this episode. Not only was Bill Burr fantastic this week, but so is Pedro Pascal as Din. Very few times in this show do we get to see Pedro Pascal without his helmet on, and both times so far in this show, he's absolutely nailed it. This week, he really nailed what not only I think it looks like, but what it feels like to be uncomfortable in a public space when he had to take off his helmet to use the facial recognition terminal. And there's a nice parallel there to a couple minutes after that scene when they're having drinks with that Imperial officer, and Mayfeld looks incredibly uncomfortable facing his past and facing his truth with how he hates the Empire and what it stands for. I think not only did Pedro Pascal as Din nail looking uncomfortable, but so did Bill Burr as Mayfeld. Both performances this week were just absolutely fantastic, and I love that scene where they sit down and have drinks with the Imperial officer. I really love the arc of this episode. I love that Din and Mayfeld go from having a really rough and sketchy relationship in the beginning of the episode, and rightfully so. But by the end, they kind of become really close because they both go through some uncomfortable experiences and have to face their past and have to face their truth together. And both, I think, gain a new respect for each other. And that was just really cool to see. The other thing that was really cool to see was the action sequences this week, especially the one at the end of the episode where they have to scale the wall and Cara and Fennec Shand are blasting stormtroopers off the wall. Oh, it was so good. You see the flash balls coming in. There goes one. Bam, there goes the other one. Oh, that was a headshot. Oh, I was getting so excited watching that sequence. It was so badass from beginning to end. I also have to say that I love that this was just an episode. I love that this was leading to the finale, but it wasn't part 1 of the finale. I think 2-part finales are kind of lame. I think if you're going to have a finale, make it 1 episode. Make it a really good episode. And that's what this episode is setting up. This is just setting up the finale. This isn't the quote-unquote part 1 of the finale. So I really like that about this episode too. And who can forget some of the callbacks at the end of this episode when Boba Fett whipped out that seismic charge and blew up those 2 TIE fighters. I literally screamed as I was watching this episode. That was so cool. I loved that moment. And of course, the final moments of this episode when Din harkens back to last season and he repeats the same words that Moff Gideon said to him about Baby Yoda. He then returns the favor to Moff Gideon. That was so awesome. Absolutely amazing episode from start to finish. Rick Famuyiwa absolutely nailed the episode. This is one of my favorites of the entire season. I absolutely cannot wait for next week's finale. It is going to be absolutely bonkers. I don't know if I'm mentally prepared for next week. What did you think of this week's episode, though? I absolutely loved it. I'd love to know what you think down in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.